This is the Your Kick-Ass Life podcast, episode number 65 with guest Rachael Rice. All links and resources you hear in this episode can be found by going to yourkickasslife.com/65.
This is the Your Kick-Ass Life podcast with Andrea Owen, a no BS guide to self-help and badassery. Because ladies, let's face it, life's too short for it to not kick ass. And here's your host, the girl who serves it up straight with a side of crazy, Andrea Owen.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Your Kick-Ass Life podcast. And I'm very excited to introduce my guest today, Miss Rachael Rice. So let me tell you a little bit about Rachael. She's an artist, writer, teacher, and speaker. She travels, teaches, performs, and creates nonstop. She's devoted most of her life to teaching others how to move through fear and confusion into creative expression. Her background is in critical pedagogy and constructivist theory and educating for democracy with a concentration in art and English. She says her heart beats for social justice, for equality, and for conscious awareness of her extreme privilege to be able to be of service in this life. Her work matters because the answers to the world's problems will come from very, very creative people. To be able to engage in the creative process, to find your flow, to fully express something inside of you creates healing. She is here to remind you we all need healing. And we will talk a lot about creativity. I'm ecstatic to bring you this topic. It's one that's been on my mind a lot. And I just wanted to take a moment to remind you that we are in open registration for the Self-Love Revolution. It is the yearly intensive that I teach with my best friend Amy Smith over at the Joy Junkie. And we have a little bit left to register, but if you guys want to get in on the half price deal, then you have to register very soon. Within the next few days, that price is going to go up. So please go to the selfloverevolution.com. You'll get all the information there. We start the first week of October. It's an 8-week intensive where we take you through 4 main topics around self-love to create healing for yourself and to allow you to get to where you are now, to a place of self-love. I would love to be able to support you with that, the selfloverevolution.com. And without further ado, here is Rachael. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 65. I am here with Rachael Rice, and you all heard about her and her fancy bio. So I'm so excited to have you here. Thanks for coming on, Rachael.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Andrea.
And you and I have corresponded via comments on Facebook for so long and just been eyeballing each other. Like I see you and you're funny and I want to know you.
Totally. Likewise. Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was like, man, I've known her on Facebook for years.
I know, right? Like old friends.
Yeah. So it's about time. It's great.
It is about time. And I'm so happy to have you here and talking about creativity and getting more into your body. And you don't know this yet, but I'm kind of dragging all my podcast listeners with me on my own personal development journey, I think, as we kind of do in this world. Yeah. But for me, and I think a lot of my people listening, and of course I can only speak for myself when I say this, but I have, as a highly high achiever, overachiever sometimes, I tend to be all up in my head most of the time. Checking things off my to-do list and not tapping into my body. So recently I've made the decision that I'm going to make more of an effort to do that. And I'm mindful that I don't want it to be another thing on my to-do list. Like, okay, every morning I'm going to meditate. And then you know what I mean? Because then it can just turn into chores that don't mean anything.
Yep.
So that's why, I'm excited to have people like you on here that are experts in this field and that really just hone that skill. And so, which leads me to my first question for you is, I love that you say that the body is the number one resource for getting information about how to be more successful in all things. So can you please tell us all the things about that? I know it's really general,
things.
But
Sure.
Go for it. Riff,
okay.
My dear.
Well, I think I'm on the similar kind of journey where I've spent, most of my even childhood sort of living more in my head and sort of imagining myself as more of a sort of intellectual person. And I wasn't super athletic. And so I kind of took a lot of refuge in, just being a fairly bright, kind of thinker oriented human. And I think a lot of us, especially like women who, have lived through some things, and whether you're like a certified sort of highly sensitive person, or, you've had some trauma, or you've just like, been like a female on planet Earth, you like we tend to sort of shut down the body's kind of responses because they can be so strong. They can be so overwhelming. I think that, at this point, our nervous systems, like everyone's sort of collective nervous system, is pretty tapped out. So there's a tendency to kind of, move away from the body as this instrument of understanding and getting information, which is often kind of intuitive and nonverbal and just feelings. And, feelings aren't necessarily the things that are the most valued in our culture and even in ourselves. Doing, thinking, those, action items are kind of more, like emphasized. So
absolutely. Well, and just to jump in real quick, it's like, how many of us have heard you're too emotional? And it's like, we don't want to be the quote unquote hysterical person and, putting our, like, keep your emotions out of this, especially I feel like in the workplace for most women.
Exactly. Yes. Don't be so sensitive. But it turns out actually that all the information that we get, even that we process through our, cognition and through our mind, actually comes through our human organism. It comes through our body. And you can really, get a lot of information and understand what to do, really understand how to be in the world by paying attention to how your body is reacting to things. You can really understand how, sometimes you just have like that feeling about somebody, right? And you're sort of like, I don't know what it is about them, but I am uncomfortable. Like your heart rate can go up. There's all kinds of like kind of somatic or body experiences that happen that are like little kind of downloads, that you're like, man, I can't really even verbalize why I don't like this person or whatever.
And how quickly we talk ourselves out of that for whatever reason.
Yeah. Yeah. So the more we sort of are tuned into how our body is responding to our environment, then the better decisions we can make. And then obviously the better decisions we can make, the more successful we're going to be, the more we're going to know, wow, that just doesn't feel right. Or like you get that kind of full body yes, you get like, goosebumps, truth bumps, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, I like truth bumps.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, that's a yes. And you don't even need to know. You can kind of, your body can give you information in a so much more quick manner than your mind. And the mind kind of like, takes its time to get to places, but your body is always taking in information, digesting it and presenting it to you, but we tend to like shut it down or just maybe cram a bunch of food on top of our feelings as a way of being in our body. I just speak for myself, but, yeah. So I don't know if that's sort of...
Yeah, no, that's helpful. And I think part of in supporting ourselves through that is just to kind of be mindful of when we're telling ourselves that we're too, or even when we hear from other people that we're too sensitive, we're too emotional. My dear friend Kate Curry just wrote a blog post not that long ago called "You Are Not Too Fucking Sensitive."
Yeah,
and she was just going off about it and how that's what we hear. And it's like, what if we just tried on that perspective for a little bit? Like maybe we're not too sensitive. Maybe our body is desperately trying to tell us something, whether it's a physical ailment, whether it's about something else. And that's what I like to tell people on the podcast. It's like, just try on the new perspective. You don't have to marry it. You don't have to totally change the way you think that you've been thinking for the last 3 or 4 decades, but just try it on.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really important. And I think we're seeing a shift towards more of that kind of integration. And I think that's, when we talk about, being successful in life and business and all this kind of stuff, it's going to mean that we actually, pay more attention to this other way of understanding things and understanding ourselves, and that's actually going to be better for the planet, because there's been a pretty long, we've had like a few thousand years of, shutting down the feminine sensitivity. Like maybe just, give it like another minute and see if, I'm just saying, like,
Might take a few minutes.
Yeah. And see how business changes, and see how our day-to-day changes, and then how that, impacts the world and impacts our careers and that kind of thing.
I think I just want to add one more thing too before we move on to the next question, and this is a personal experience that I had very recently, and what I had to do was, because I look around and I see my colleagues and other people in this field, like like really tapping into their creativity and tapping into their bodies and just having the ability to trust their intuition a little bit more than I have. And I can have the tendency to feel jealous and like do the compare and despair.
Totally.
And I think that some of us need to go through that. And I did. And then I finally was like, okay, I honestly don't think I was ready to go to that place of, because it can be pretty intense. And I'm not trying to scare people listening, but I think that like wherever you are in your journey, like there you are. Like I'm not giving you an out or letting you make excuses, but just I think that what tends to happen is we sort of like beat ourselves up for not being more like so-and-so that we see out there in the world.
Yes.
So I know for me, and this was right before I went to Soul Camp, I just made the decision because at Soul Camp, there was like all these different options to choose from different workshops. And there were the ones that were a little bit more heady. And of course I taught one that was more heady and more intellectual, and conceptual. And then there were all these options to go much deeper. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do the stuff that scares me and that makes me really uncomfortable because I just want to be open to it. And here's another thing, you guys, is that I was mindful of being unattached to the outcome.
Right.
Because I think so many smart, high-achieving women are like, all right, I'm going to go to this workshop where we are going to do some energy work and I'm going to completely unlock all of my blocks around my father.
Totally. Totally. I'm going to be the best at imperfection.
Right. Yes. So I know now, after doing this work for a long time, because there is perfectionism in personal growth. I see it. I see you. So it's just like, okay, I'm going to do this. It's going to be uncomfortable. And I don't know what's going to happen on the other end. Nothing might happen. Something amazing might happen. I don't know.
Yeah. And that's the tricky bit about also being in your body, is because there's so much, there's such a like intense standard around what women's bodies are supposed to be and look like and feel like and present as. And so, unless we're sort of like, tanning or going to the gym, then it's a really, it's a challenging thing to sort of be like, well, what does it mean to be in my body? And to actually enjoy that experience, which is really, hard given, how much pressure there is to sort of have the body be a certain way, really can come up against all that, perfectionist stuff. I just want to like put a pin in that, because it's like, oh yeah, be in your body. I mean, everybody says that, right? It's like such a thing, yeah, when you really need somatic practices and being in our body, and let's get a handle on your amygdala and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, but it's really triggering.
It can be.
Really can be really triggering.
Yeah. So tread lightly, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Tread lightly. So I love the blog post that you wrote titled, I Want to Be Eaten. And I know that sounds really sexy, everyone. So Rachel, can you explain the gist of the post for the listeners and how you put that concept into practice in your life?
Sure. Well, I was at this yoga class with Sarah Trelease, who's just an amazing yogi here in Portland, Oregon. And she really appeals to my kind of intellectual side when doing yoga, which for me is not really about the body, like changing my body, but it's about learning how to be uncomfortable. Anyway, she said the opposite of holding on isn't letting go, it's digestion. And I was like, what the hell is she talking about? Like the opposite of holding on isn't letting go, it's digestion. And she kind of went on to talk about how in order to process things and to let go of them, to understand what you don't need, to have some discernment around what you need to hold on to and what you need to let go of, you actually have to process a lot of information. You have to take it in, kind of chew it up, swallow it, digest it, and basically kind of excrete the shit you don't need. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, that's really helpful on so many levels, because it sort of frames all of our understanding and development as being a type of digestion. We consume information, images, people, podcasts, material, whatever, and we process it in our own way. We process it, we digest it through our consciousness, and we let go of hopefully we let go of what does not serve us. And it made me realize that, there's such an overabundance of things that we are consuming, that we've kind of beat evolution at this point. You know, there's just no real scarcity anymore. And yet we have this kind of organism where we still live in this biology that really has a sort of negative bias. You know, the brain has such a negativity bias because it's just designed to find problems. And that's, you know, we like evolved from these little proto rodents that, you know, we're like forever trying to get away from, you know, scary other things. And the ones that hung out and like appreciated butterflies totally got eaten. Right. And the rest of us evolved to be anxious. Like, so,
that's so true.
It's okay. It doesn't like, it's not like you don't have like a massive character defect. You just, you know, you're just a product of your biology. And again, like kind of understanding yourself as an organism, as an animal is so helpful, you know, because it lets us sort of off the hook about like, oh, I'm so fucked up. I'm so like, oh, I gotta, you know, that inner critic. That I love all the stuff that you talk about. And so I just was so excited that you invited me to talk because, you know, you talk about all the things that I think about. And so then the way then to sort of get clear on what you need is to make sure that you're not overtaxing your digestive system. And in all ways, like just in like your gut, but also, you know, how many more, you know, likes do you really need? Like how much more scrolling do you really need to do? How many more handbags do you really need to buy? Like do you really need 3 meals a day and 2 snacks? You know, really?
Yeah, eat when you're hungry.
Really?
What?
Like, are you really, really hungry? Or like, it's amazing, like how much less we actually need, to figure out, you know, what we can let go of. And so then it's just a matter of like not, you know, cramming so much down your gullet, your sort of metaphorical spiritual gullet or your actual mouth. And then that keeps your system in a state of being able to do repair. And which is why all of us are here, right? I mean, we're here to heal and we're here to be healed, and like to heal each other and to transmit our medicine to each other. And if we're overtaxing our system, then it's really hard to be discerning.
I don't have anything left.
Yeah, and have anything left over.
That is profound, girl.
Thanks.
Well, I read your blog post and I loved it, but I'm so glad that you are, and you guys, if you want to read the blog post, it's in the show notes, yourkickasslife.com/65. And I really related to what you were saying about how we are constantly in a state of consumption. And there's just so much great information out there. I mean,
it's awesome.
I deleted the Facebook app from my phone because I felt like it was taking over my life, because I have a Chrome extension on my laptop where it totally wipes out my newsfeed.
Yeah, I love that.
I love it. So I don't see my newsfeed at all. I still get notifications, but I don't see my newsfeed, but I still had my phone. So I was like, well, what am I missing? You know?
Right.
And so I deleted that, and I couldn't believe how much space that opened up for me. And then I got major FOMO, fear of missing out, and I put it back on there. And I mean, even things like my husband and I did the Whole30 because he was having some health issues.
I love the Whole30.
Yeah, I was just too much sugar for me. And so we did the Whole30 together, and I didn't really see any changes as far as like, I'm lucky. I don't have any like weird food allergies or anything like that. But emotionally, holy shit.
Oh, yeah.
Like at night when we would put our kids to bed and watch TV, I was like, I don't know what to do with my hands. I don't like. I was so used to like eating food like when I'm not even hungry, and so it was things like that I had to deal with, and I'm like, okay. And in those moments of not having Facebook on my phone, of not snacking while I'm eating TV, I really feel like on this whole topic of your body trying to talk to you, I feel like it was those, my stomach is like clenched up even saying this. I feel like my body's trying to tell me like, let's use this time to just settle the fuck down.
Right.
Okay.
Maybe read an actual book with like actual pages or something.
I do that. But I think like even less than that. Like what if you were just still? I feel like that's such a challenge for so many women. Like we just, for us to be still, we feel guilty about it. Like,
we could be doing all this stuff.
Laundry. But but I could be researching better schools for my kids.
Right.
The list goes on and on and on and on. And I think that that's a process to even, you know, that's a whole inner critic episode all on its own. But I want to maybe just like give everybody permission to just look at the thing, not even like, I'm not making you be still. Like just look at the things that are consuming your energy and your attention and your body that actually don't need to be there. I think we distract ourselves on purpose. It's like, for me, it's like, I am distracting myself on purpose because there's something that I don't want to deal with. Like for me, it used to be I would just get in everybody else's business.
Totally. Yeah, I don't like drama. I just want to know 105% of what's going on. That's all.
Right. So yeah, I hope that kind of opened some windows and doors for some people listening.
Well, it's very helpful. I just wanted to say, because it's definitely a part of the digestion piece for me, and my own sort of shifts that have come along in my life. Was one of the major ones was around eating at night. And it's been a lifelong challenge. It was something I just did as a child, something my mother kind of programmed into us. Like, we had a scary dad. He would freak out. Let's have some cookies. It's 9 p.m., so it was this very hardwired kind of thing. And it was about 8 months ago that I hired a health coach, Meg Warden, megwarden.com. She's freaking awesome. Changed her life. But really, and she's like, you gotta stop eating at night. She's like, you just have to stop. And,
oh my God.
And I did. And I'm like about down 35, 40 pounds.
That's amazing. Now, did you need like some hand holding on that, or how did it go?
Oh, I definitely needed hand holding. And I text her everything I eat, and I text her at night all the things I'm craving. I really enjoy miso, like a cup of miso soup at night. But I started going to bed earlier because it was like, well, fuck it.
If I can't eat, I'm just going to go to bed.
Snack, totally going to bed. Which then made me get up for the first time in my entire life. And as I've been a career musician for a few years, and that meant going to bed at like 2, 3 in the morning consistently. But also I've just been a natural night owl and did all my most creative work at 2 in the morning kind of thing. I'd get a second wind right around 10, 11 o'clock at night. I started going to bed. I wake up, my eyes like fly open at 7 p.m. or 7 a.m. For the very first, I'm like 38 years old. It's never, ever happened before. And so that's been, it's absolutely just that one thing of being willing to be really, really, really uncomfortable from around, 7:30 p.m. till 10:30 p.m. Like 3 hours of fairly intense discomfort has absolutely been one of the most radical, apart from doing some 12-step work and, the therapy and all the things that are awesome that help change your life, that not eating at night has radically shifted.
That's amazing. And talk about, really listening to your body too. I'm sure you knew for a long time before you actually took action on it, which I think that happens to a lot of people.
Sure. You gotta lie on the couch and think about it for a couple of years.
Yeah.
For sure.
I'll start tomorrow.
Exactly. But it gave me a lot more energy. And so I wake up with energy. I don't wake up like really sluggish. I don't drink full caffeinated coffee in the morning anymore. Like there's, I'm kind of a completely different person since I made this one small but really, really significant change that really affected my digestion, and it affects the amount of digestion I do on, I think, a spiritual level as well.
Yeah, very, very much. Very, very much so. I totally believe that 1,000%. And so, we've mentioned the word creativity a couple of times here, and I think one of the saddest things I see is women not doing anything creative. I've talked to so many women who don't. And I know that you help women tap into their creativity and using it for feeling and healing. So first, what do you have to say to women who put creativity last on their list, if it's even on there at all?
Right. Well, I think it often happens because people think that certain people are creative and other people aren't.
Right.
And
not true.
And no, totally not true. And usually, we probably had some kind of teacher that maybe said the wrong thing, or, one of our parents was kind of like, you should really have a backup plan, So there's often some kind of external critic became an internalized critic.
Wait, I'm going to cut you off for just a second. Wait, hold your thought.
Sure.
So have you listened to Elizabeth Gilbert's new podcast?
No.
Okay.
Is it awesome?
So good. Well, because she has a new book coming out, Big Magic, I think. And the podcast is called Magic Lessons. And they're really short podcasts. And I love her. And she has she's basically helping people with creativity, like regular people. And then she calls her friends, which are amazing people, like, it's totally like Ann Patchett, who wrote State of Wonder. And, Brene Brown is on there. So anyway, Brene, it's the more recent episode, was talking about in her research that when she interviewed, thousands and thousands of people, that 85% of the people that she interviewed had some kind of shaming experience in school that affected them for the rest of their life. And 50% of those people, it was around creativity.
That's right.
So it's exactly what you said. So it's like, yeah, exactly. Like, you're a terrible singer. You're terrible at art. Like, don't stop dancing. Yeah.
Yes.
That.
And
okay.
I was a public school teacher. Like, my career is actually one of them, but my longest one was as a public school teacher. And I was an art teacher, for almost 15 years. And that's kind of consistently what I saw. There was a tremendous amount of like kind of unlearning that had to happen. Even just, you could see like fifth graders already had gotten some kind of message, and they're like, oh, well, I'm not creative. I'm not good at art. It's like, you're in fifth fucking grade. You don't even know what you're good at yet.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck,
Well, and let me ask you something real quick. And so when you say art, so describe when you say art, what do you mean by that? Because I think people just think that's like drawing.
Right. People think that they'll be like, I can't draw a straight line. And it's like, they have rulers. Like, that's not, the pinnacle of like human expression is not drawing, And one of the things I would do in my adult art classes that I would teach, especially with people who would absolutely have like a legit panic attack at the sight of a white page, I would have everybody like paint with forks, or like Q-tips, or even like brooms. Like, I would just do this. I would have some kind of exercise that would, absolutely circumvent this sort of ability to do it well, because ain't nobody good at painting with forks. Like, I have to get the fuck over that.
Right.
There's no like fork painting expert. But yeah, there's, to me, I have a really, really broad concept of what art is. And I think that that's part of what people need to come to terms with, is that being creative is a fundamental aspect of being human. Like, that's what human beings do. They're meaning making machines. Like, we find patterns and we attach meaning, and we, this is what it means to be human, and not necessarily a different kind of animal. Although there are other animals that do like really creative kind of, like Google bowerbird, it'll blow your fucking mind.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it's about kind of redefining and understanding yourself as an inherently creative person, just by virtue of being a human being. Especially women who like create other people inside themselves. Like, it's crazy. Yeah, but kind of like getting past the very narrow definition of what it means to make art. Because a lot of us, the way we arrange our desk, the way we set up our home, the kind of, how we dress our children and how we make a garden. I mean, these are all, really creative things that
I even tell people it's like singing, dancing, cooking, baking, quilting, scrapbooking, writing, drawing, poetry, like speaking poetry, like all of those things are art. It's a very broad spectrum.
Yeah. Yeah, and just enjoy, aspects of it that are really accessible, like color, rhythm, texture, pattern. You don't have to like render, a thing to look like another thing in order to be good at art. All you have to do is appreciate how form and color interact with each other, which I think we do. When you like watch a sunset, you're like, damn, if you can like enjoy a sunset, you can be an artist, period. Yeah. Stop.
I truly believe that there's something about creativity that allows us to, a couple of things, allows us to share our souls with one another. And then I don't think that all of our art needs to be shared with the world.
Agreed.
And that's something that I'm just coming to terms with now, because I don't even remember the last time I just wrote for me that I haven't put out into the world. So I was talking to my friend who's a screenwriter, and she was like, that's part of self-care as an artist, is like just doing it for you.
Yes.
But,
really hard.
I know. I'm like, if I'm going to be writing, I need to like be doing it for work.
That's right. It's going to go on a Facebook post. Oh my God. It's going to be in my blog.
That does not have to be the case. But I think that that's what Elizabeth Gilbert and Brene were talking about, is that something happens to our souls when we create art. And I think that, I mean, you guys listening, like, even if you just schedule it, because I know y'all love to schedule, but even if you I gave that as a homework assignment to a client last week, and she's got 3 little kids, and she has family friends that are like begging to watch her kids, and she feels bad. And I'm like, well, what would you be doing during that time? Like, what have you done creatively? And she was like, well, I like to write. And I was like, that is your assignment.
Yes.
Go out and get some childcare and write. make it terrible, write
Right.
terribly. Like I dance terribly a lot. I sing even worse, but I still do it because like something happens. And I just a quick story, like when I was really lost, and a lot of people know my story, I got really lost in my 20s and not like on the freeway, like emotionally and spiritually, but I wrote in my teens a lot, just like angsty teen stuff. And then even as a child, I started writing a book. And then in my 20s, I completely put it away. I did not write anything in my 20s. And then I picked the pen back up when I turned 30 and when everything started healing. Like, I don't think it's any coincidence that I completely blocked out all of my creativity during that entire decade and I was suffering. Right. So go out and be creative, you guys.
Please do it, and do it badly. Like aim for like shitty art. Like
for
really
Pinterest fails.
Yes, Pinterest fail is the goal. Like, because really, the world is not going to be a better place because you didn't make something new. Because it isn't perfect. So the creative process can be this vehicle where we work with our perfectionism, we work with showing up, and we work with, understanding that we're going to have to be our own best friend and be good enough, even if our art doesn't look like, whatever art you're seeing on the internet or on Pinterest or whatever. We're not going to be on our deathbed being like, wow, I'm really glad I put off all that creativity that wasn't going to be perfect.
Yeah.
I'm so, I definitely needed to work more. Life is short, art is long. So.
Love that. I do. And so the last thing I want to ask you before we wrap it up is how can women use their creativity for feeling and healing?
I think that the process is a vehicle for understanding yourself, understanding what you like, understanding what you don't like, taking the time, make sure you have a really long, no list, like your to don't list, so that you have the time to devote to the creative process. And just that alone, just figuring out what you need to stop doing, what you need to say no to, what kinds of things are overloading your creative digestive system, is going to be, a personal development practice, because you're going to really figure out the things that don't serve you so that you have the time to do the creative work that, that is so good for you to do, even if no one else ever sees it. And a quick word about feedback and critics, like how you be very, very careful who you show your creative work to. If they're not in the arena, Brene Brown talks about this, if they're not in the arena of doing the kind of work that you're putting out into the world, their opinion actually doesn't fucking matter.
Right. Amen.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're not painting and like showing at like coffee shops or whatever, if you're not writing songs and playing them at bars, for total strangers, then what you think about my painting and my songs actually doesn't really matter to me, because you're not in the arena of producing the kind of work. Like, I'm going to pay attention to the people that are in the arena. Their opinions matter because they do understand. And I'm going to be really careful about the people that aren't in the arena who I show my work to. And that's a healing endeavor.
And that's a learning endeavor too, because I think we've all made that mistake of like hustling to get the people that really don't matter sometimes to us to like our art or like our work. Isn't it insanity? Like, we still do this. Like, why?
Well, it's, especially if you had a dad that never said it, you were good enough or whatever. You just keep playing that whole, like, whatever, childhood wound out and like trying to get the approval of, the people that will then reinforce the story.
Right.
That's so wonderful. We have like these wonderful little narratives that play out in our everyday life. And that's, again, where the creative process can be a healing thing, because you're like, wow, I actually don't need my dad's approval to be a good person and to make good work and, to move through the world in a way that feels right for me.
Yeah, the thing with art is it's similar to bearing our stories. And, and Brene teaches us, you tell people your story that have earned the right to hear it. And I believe it is the same for showing people your art. And, the thing is like, I don't, my son last night, he made this like amazing Lego tower thing that was like, I was so impressed. And, part of most of the beauty of it for me isn't so much the tower that he created. It's the fact that he's proud of his work and he trusts me enough to show it to me. And like, that's the beauty that I see. Like, I'm elated. Like, I'm honored to be able to see this art that you have created. And he's 8 years old and it's Legos. But it's like, that's what is so meaningful to me as, and again, I'm his mother. So of course I think that, but I think that even as we grow up, like I don't know if it's so much that like we want people to like it. I do think that that's part of the case, but I think that we want to just, it's so
seen.
vulnerable. Yes, it is so vulnerable to show someone your art. I mean, when I wrote my book and put it out into the world,
oh my God,
I had no idea what I was in for. Rachel, like I got sideswiped. I didn't know, and I've shared this with my audience before. I was out for 4 months when the book promotion was over. I hid for 4 months because I had such a vulnerability hangover.
Yes,
and luckily, like all the you know, I don't think I mean, there might have been like a bad review or two, but I didn't read them. I'm like, nope.
Good.
But it was all good. But still, I was just like on the bed, just like I can't. It just is hard. So I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah. And in our own small way, like we all face that, and we all so want to be seen. We so want to be seen and heard. And so finding the right community to like, you know, who can hold space, as they say out here on the West Coast. On the East Coast, we called it listening, but whatever. You know, people that can really, you know, give appropriate, helpful, constructive feedback. And it helps you also appreciate, like, if you can like look at your own work and find things to appreciate about it and not just pick it apart and be like, okay, well, I hate it, but you know, which is going to be like negativity bias. Like that's just how the brain works. It's cool. It's not like a bad thing. It's all good. But really understanding that you can, you know, find things to appreciate about your own work, and it helps you appreciate things in life.
Absolutely.
You know, and ramp your gratitude up, which is, you know, one of the main things that keeps us all going, I think, is finding things to appreciate.
Yay for gratitude. Well, thank you so much for being here and instilling your wisdom on us. This has been such a treat for me, and I've learned so much. And tell everyone where they can find you. It's RachelRice.com.
You can go to RachelRice.com. It's Rachael, but you know, find me over on the social medias and stuff. I love connecting with people, and
she has amazing art. Everyone find it.
Thank you. I'm a huge fan of Andrea Owen, and I've been listening to, you know, the self-love stuff and for years, and it helped me a lot when I first arrived in Portland, Oregon, sold everything I owned, got here, somehow stumbled across your work. I listened to those webinars and those interviews like on repeat for a long time, and it really helped me. So I'm just grateful to be able to like give back a little bit to the work that you're putting out in the world.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. And again, everybody, yourkickasslife.com/65, and all of the links that we talked about will be there, including the link to Elizabeth Gilbert's podcast and Rachel's blog post. So until next time, I will see you all out in cyberspace. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Bye.